First thing to say is that during this tragic shooting, where several bullets were fired in President Trump's direction, we know that one person tragically lost their life. A couple of other people were very seriously injured. And as for President Trump himself, it was really a miraculous escape, because if you look at the video, he moved his head at the last moment. And the bullets which whizzed past him, one didn't whiz past him. He was actually shot in the ear. And you saw afterwards blood streaking down the ear. And from a medical standpoint, the ear is made of cartilage. So it is not as full of blood vessels, arteries, veins as many other parts of the body. So even if there's not full penetration, there won't be catastrophic bleeding, usually from an ear injury. So typically it's something that can be fixed in a local emergency care facility. And it appears that that is exactly what happened. So that is the first thing to say. President Trump got shot in the ear, and it was a total miracle that he didn't get hit in the back of his head. If you look at the video again, how he moved his head at the last moment. So let's think here more globally about what happened. The shots were fired, and the sound often occurs after the bullets, because the bullets travel faster than sound. So if you look at President Trump, he looks around, he obviously feels something on his ear, he then probably hears the shots, and he knows that he's been hit with something. He clutches his ear, and then he goes down. And if you look at what happens, he's on the ground. There's some pictures of that moment. And then the Secret Service pile upon him. And from a tactical standpoint, this isn't my area of expertise, but going on what they were saying, they wanted to make sure that the threat was neutralized, that the shooter was down before they got the president back up. So you can see the president, he's actually quite composed given the circumstances, but he gets up and then he asks for his shoes. He then turns towards the crowd. He's obviously experiencing some pain in his ear by then. And then he defiantly puts his fists up. He encourages the audience to fight. And then he is led off. And I want you all to think about this situation. Imagine yourself in this position. Imagine you're in a crowded area and you hear something, maybe you feel something first, and then you hear loud bangs, which in the United States, most people will have their radar up that it could be gunfire. And then that moment of panic typically sets in. There's this moment where you don't know what's happened. There's some numbness involved. But imagine being in that situation. Many, many people might panic. But we didn't see that reaction from President Trump. Looking at it purely again, from a medical scientific standpoint, I'm looking at his reaction. It doesn't seem to be panicked at all. He's quite composed. And then as he gets up, he's not insisting, oh, let's get out of here, let's get out of here. He's asking for his shoes. He wants to stand back up. And then he's got that fist pump of defiance. And then he is focused on the audience, telling them to fight. And the significance of this cannot be overstated. And again, I'm not getting political here. It is a very impressive achievement for a 78-year-old to be in that circumstance. I genuinely don't think that most people who had that sort of tragedy happen to them could respond with composure. Many, many people out there would go into that full-blown panic, that moment of complete shock where you don't know what is going on, but you know that it is something very bad indeed. And you know that your life is in danger. Remember, these are animal instincts. We all have animal instincts, especially during that threat. Our adrenaline levels shoot up and then we go into full fight or flight mode. But many people go into that flight mode. They want to run away. Many people start screaming immediately. And this is all understandable. It's a very human reaction. And I want to share with you a quote that I read online that same night, which is very true. So take a look at this. This is from somebody called Brooke Rollins. Ever been in combat? Ever been shot at? I haven't. Neither until today has President Trump. But one thing that combat veterans tell me over and over is that combat reveals character. The experience of being under fire exposes who you are in fundamental ways. You don't really know what the answer will be until the moment is upon you. Well, we just had President Trump's character revealed. Turns out he's the kind of man who comes under fire, takes a hit, feels the blood, and stands back up with his fist raised. That's who he is. That's who he always was. And now we know it. So that is a very interesting quote. And I've heard similar things from people that I've spoken to over the years who have served in the military. your true character often comes out during a time of extreme stress. And that moment would have been a time of extreme stress for anybody. And what did you see? Well, President Trump obviously got hit, went down onto the ground. He remained quite composed. Then he got up again, and his first instinct was to raise his fist and declare that he wanted to continue the fight. And that nature shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody who has followed President Trump for some time. Even before he was president, that public persona has been there for decades. That desire to fight, wasn't he involved in some wrestling match at some point? But that came out right there, that fighting type of spirit. And a lot of people get very confused between cognition and character. A lot of highly partisan people confuse the two. Just because you don't like someone's character, that doesn't mean that they have a cognitive issue. And I will say this from a medical standpoint, as someone who's been a doctor for many years, some doctors may disagree with me. This is my own opinion. If you put someone who does have cognitive issues in a position where they are startled and surprised, it is highly unlikely that they will respond like President Trump did. That's my own opinion. Obviously, I don't have access to any formal cognitive tests, but it's very, very unlikely.